They used to call the late Jerry Buss the last of a dying breed. Long before tech moguls and the flashy winners of the dot-com boom claimed their seats at the ownership table, and well before the private equity condors began circling and settling into the rafters of professional sports the way they have today, there was Jerry Buss. In 1979, he purchased the Los Angeles Lakers for $67.5 million, an enormous sum at the time, yet a fraction of what the franchise would later command. That acquisition came roughly 2 decades after Buss had turned a modest $1,000 investment in an apartment complex into the foundation of a real estate empire that, at its peak, approached $1 billion in value. At the time, he was still working in the aerospace industry, searching for a side hustle that could better support his family. That side hustle evolved into one of the most influential and culturally defining ownership regimes in the history of professional sports. Jerry Buss helped set the league on the course it is on today. The late NBA commissioner David Stern once observed. Remember, he showed us it was about showtime, the notion that an arena can become the focal point for not just basketball but entertainment. He made it the place to see and be seen. Under Buss, the Lakers did not merely win, they became a cultural institution. In 33 years of ownership, the team reached the NBA Finals 16 times more appearances than the combined total of the Nets, Pacers, Jazz, Magic, Wizards, Nuggets, Kings, Raptors, and Mavericks over the same span. Buss helped usher in the NBA's modern golden era. For more than 3 decades, he cultivated the Lakers' mystique and, more broadly, the very concept of sports as high-end entertainment, shaping both in his own image. He was a Hollywood playboy who had risen from modest beginnings in Wyoming, yet he never lost a deep, almost visceral affection for his team and its fans. Jerry is the guy on the street, former Sacramento Kings owner Gavin Maloof said in 2010. He likes to go to strip bars and eat hamburgers. And when you do that, you have an advantage over someone in the boardroom who doesn't understand the common man. That connection to ordinary people, combined with a shrewd understanding of spectacle, allowed Buss to build something that felt both glamorous and grounded, an ownership style that is increasingly rare in today's NBA. The landscape has shifted dramatically. In the past 3 years alone, there have been 6 NBA ownership changes, nearly half the total number of sales recorded in the previous 22 years. Family estates are being sold in rapid succession to private equity firms and consortiums of ultra-wealthy investors. The faint, almost nostalgic idea of a mom-and-pop NBA franchise has been thoroughly dismantled, replaced by severe concentration of wealth and a more transactional approach to team ownership. If any vestige of the old model remains with the Lakers, it exists in the tenuous arrangement that has kept Jeanie Buss in place as the team's governor for at least 5 years. "Mark Walter and I are very comfortable with the way things are set up," Jeanie said in February. "And I expect things to go on and be successful. And I'm not going anywhere. For the moment, that arrangement continues," according to Bob Iger. "Owning the Los Angeles Lakers has been one of the great honors of my life, an extraordinary investment," begins a statement from Mark Walter. The phrasing itself reveals a great deal about the current state of NBA ownership in 2026. In roughly a year, Walter turned a reported $2.5 billion profit on a deal that, according to multiple accounts, was negotiated from start to finish in just 72 hours. Given the Lakers' unmatched legacy, cultural cachet, and status as one of the most valuable sports franchises on the planet, the speed and apparent casualness of the transaction strike many observers as almost flippant. Some have even likened it, not entirely in jest, to the Luka Doncic trade of ownership changes, an abrupt, high-stakes move that prioritized financial engineering over the slower, more sentimental transfer of a cultural institution. There may be more complicated reasons for the rapid sale. Walter has been under federal investigation concerning billions of dollars in loans made by 2 Delaware-based life insurance companies he owns. Those loans went to other companies with ties to Walter, transactions that allegedly may not have been properly disclosed to state insurance regulators who examine related party transactions for potential conflicts of interest. In essence, Walter faces a federal probe into what could amount to massive loan-related issues. Liquidating one of his most valuable and liquid assets, the Lakers, could be a strategic move to navigate or weather the fallout from that investigation. The new ownership group adds further layers of complexity and scrutiny. One of its principal figures is Joshua Kushner, younger brother of Jared Kushner, son-in-law of President Donald Trump. Joshua was in the news only last month over another controversial proposal. FIFA President Gianni Infantino had intended to sell a minority stake valued at approximately $4.2 billion in a new entity that would manage the organization's global events to the investment firm Kushner runs. That plan was abandoned after widespread and unanimous protest. The Lakers deal also follows reports that the Iger-Kushner pairing had previously explored ownership of a potential Las Vegas expansion franchise, an opportunity that would have carried an estimated expansion fee in the range of $7 billion to $10 billion. This is a meteor of a development in the otherwise quiet dog days of the NBA news cycle. Yet notice what is missing from the conversation. We are not talking about the game on the floor. We are not discussing the intricate game within the game of roster construction, player development, or coaching philosophy. We are certainly not talking about practice. Instead, the focus has shifted entirely to the game above the game, the way professional sports increasingly serve as a sophisticated vehicle for financial maneuvering among the ultra-wealthy. The price of entry into NBA ownership continues to climb across the board. Recent changes in ownership have already produced noticeable cultural shifts, sometimes almost overnight. The Phoenix Suns owner has transformed the franchise into something resembling a Michigan State alumni association. The Portland Trail Blazers owner has employed aggressive slash-and-burn tactics, apparently convinced that recent success in the NHL justifies any means. The Dallas Mavericks ownership situation is its own well-documented saga. Mark Cuban, once the loudest and most persistent thorn in the side of fellow owners, now seems almost quaint by comparison. The league's prolonged Kawhi Leonard saga appears, at least in part, connected to the fact that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer is the wealthiest individual owner in the NBA by a significant margin. Whatever punishment is ultimately handed down to Ballmer and the Clippers will necessarily set a precedent for a league that is increasingly controlled by private equity groups and investors with deeper pockets and, in many cases, fewer traditional qualms about the old norms of competitive fairness. It is an almost impossible balancing act for Commissioner Adam Silver, who counts many of these powerful figures as friends, colleagues, and, in a very real sense, employers. Only 2 months ago, Silver sat among some of the most influential media executives in the world during Game 1 of the NBA Finals in San Antonio. To his left was Bob Iger, the former Disney CEO, whom Silver himself had once been considered a potential successor to in 2023. To Silver's right sat Josh DeMero, Iger's eventual successor at Disney. Beside Iger was Jimmy Pitaro, chairman of ESPN. The gathering celebrated the first year of the NBA's landmark 11-year, $76 billion media rights agreement with Disney and its partners. Now Iger himself is a co-owner of the most valuable basketball franchise in the world. In a joint statement with Kushner, the new group took care to acknowledge the past. We have immense respect for the leadership and vision of Jerry and Jeannie Buss. Our long-term commitment is to build on that foundation, compete at the highest level, and serve this extraordinary team, its fans, and the city of Los Angeles. The word long-term stands out. It functions as an immediate point of contrast with Walter's brief tenure, which has been widely portrayed as that of a sophisticated day trader who found himself entangled in serious legal and regulatory difficulties. Jeannie Buss has said that her father would have approved of the earlier sale to Walter, who remains the principal owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers even after divesting the Lakers. Whether Jerry Buss would have viewed the subsequent rapid transfer with the same approval is an open and more uncomfortable question. For lack of a better description, the abrupt second sale of the Lakers within a span of just 14 months feels destabilizing. With each successive transaction, the franchise drifts further from the carefully cultivated culture Jerry Buss created around one of the most storied teams in sports history. What was once treated as a family heirloom has become entangled with entities under federal investigation and figures who have drawn sharp criticism from parts of the international sports community. What initially seemed like a difficult but understandable turning of the page for a family that had struggled to fully match its patriarch's standard now resembles something closer to a sudden and jarring transfer of power. The 13 years since Jerry Buss's death have not been without turbulence for his children. Yet even amid their missteps, they appeared to understand that the Lakers' primary identity was as a basketball team and a civic institution. What happens when that identity is subordinated to the logic of a larger investment portfolio, when the franchise becomes simply one more high-value asset among many? I just can't visualize no longer owning this team. Jerry Buss once said of his beloved Lakers some 25 years ago. After Wednesday's news, it has become all too easy for the rest of us to picture him turning in his grave.